Hello and good morning on a beautiful crisp morning in Minfforth Yard. We thought we'd give you an update on the Wagontracks project. This started more than 10 years ago now. We'd been restoring heritage wagons, slate wagons of course forming part of the important gravity train. We'd been doing that for a number of years, but yet we realised that over time, a lot of the wagons that we'd been restoring 10 years prior to that were starting to suffer because they were living out in the elements. Now, the railway, when the preservationists arrived, inherited, as other people have said, the full railway. The infrastructure, the locos were still sat in the loco shed. The ticket officers were still there with tickets in, and of course the heritage wagons, a good number of which were scrapped, but there was still more than 200 heritage wagons dating back to the 19th century. So we'd been working to restore these for operation in demonstration trains, yet storage was absolutely all over the place. So with that number of wagons, we decided that we needed a more sustainable solution for storage. So around this time, the railway as a whole was looking at sustainability. We had the Sustainable Railway Plan, which we spent the last 10 years implementing. And this was our kind of reaction to that in the heritage wagon part of the railway. So various sites all over the railway were looked at for storage solutions, and at the time there was a great deal of work going on to plan the future of Minfforth Yard, so we took a full part in that. The result is what you see behind me, the Wagontracks shed. It's 5 sidings wide, 84 metres long, and the wagons are now stored securely and in the dry. So I think we'll go and have a look inside. Planning for the shed took quite a long time as we integrated with the planning that was going on in other parts of Minfforth Yard. But after a while we came up with this plan. So like I said, we've got 5 sidings. 2 are accessed from the Minor Ferron wharf end of the yard, and 3 are accessed from the other end closer to the goods shed. 1, the middle road, is accessed actually through the goods shed. Fundraising took place around this time, and we're incredibly grateful for all the donations. It was actually quite heartening with the reaction we got to our appeal, just to see that there was backing for this sort of storage for the heritage wagons. Construction took place around 2015, and we're incredibly grateful again for support from White House Construction, who came along to do the earthworks, so creating the drainage and the foundations for the shed. Then it was erected by contractors and clad, and then it was down to us to do the next steps. So with an empty shell of a shed, one of the first jobs was the electrical fit out. And again, that was done entirely by volunteers, and we really are thankful to the electrical gang for helping us with that. Then it was track laying time. There's approximately 500 metres of track that's been laid for this shed, both inside and in the approaches. There was a lot of staff support for that, but 99% of the labour that went into that was volunteer labour. All of the material is displaced from elsewhere on the railway. So most of the bullhead track was in the main line until only a small number of years ago. Points were used when they were displaced from Boston Lodge, as we were replacing with brand new units down there. We also had a store of the older double head rail, Festiniog double head rail, and this has been laid in our middle siding in 3 road, just there. This is a slightly different rail section for the connoisseurs amongst you, so we kept that all together in 1 road. It's fantastic that this shed provides storage for so many wagons, and we'll show you some of them in a minute. But it also provides a really valuable use for this heritage track material, and it allows us to store a lot of it actually in the dry for any potential future users. So each of the sidings has got more rails stored in the 2 foot, ready for use should we ever want to in the future. And because of this focus on the track materials, on the middle road, especially 3 road, we were able to demonstrate quite an evolution on the railway of different rail types, going from the very, very early types of rail with stone sleepers through to the spiked sleeper construction with so-called S chairs because they're lovely and curly, through to what we called normal double head rail, and this is the most modern type. Even that is incredibly old, obviously. Track laying was a large job, not only to lay the track but also then to level it to get it fully flat throughout this shed. But once that was complete, it was down to final fitting out, creating crossings going across the shed for walkways. And then finally, in 2020, in a little break between lockdowns, the Wooden Wagon Federation team were able to complete construction of the wooden sliding doors that you've already seen me open at the station end. And that meant the shed was finished. Mostly finished, because these things are never finished. But that did present a real kind of milestone in the project and meant that we were able to lock the doors finally and create a truly secure storage space for the wagons. Externally, there was an awareness that this is taking up a large part of a heritage location in Minforth Yard. So whilst it is undeniably a modern steel-framed building, we have aimed to make it blend in as best we can, as best you can with such a large shed. So there's wrinkly tin cladding, which has a long history on the railway going back to Victorian times. There's the aforementioned wooden doors, wooden sliding doors, and other details as well, like some of the guttering and the downpipes, to just try and make it blend in as best as possible. And actually, during the Hunslet 125 event, a lot of which was down here with small quarry Hunslet locos operating in the yard, it was a backdrop to a lot of the action, and a lot of the photos kind of justified our approach to try and make it blend in just a little bit. So this is one road, and this is, generally speaking, where the operational gravity train fleet lives. It's the most easily accessed, and it means we can gravitate from a gravity train up the line straight down towards this siding and get them all nicely inside at the end of events. So funnily enough, we've got 2 road next. We've got more of the restored operational fleet of slate wagons in this road, and then towards the back, the lesser accessed wagons that are in here for long-term storage. Down at the end, we've got the remains of the brine tank wagon. This wagon used to be filled with seawater, allegedly, to go up to Plas Tanabulk to fill the baths of the Oakley family up there. It ended its operational days at Pontcroiser. It was used as a water tower. The remains were saved and brought back to Minforth Yard, and it's stored inside now. A replica is being built and should be operational in the next couple of years. We've also got more of the granite wagon conversions, and here we have some bolster wagons that are actually storing old signal components, including an old company original Mackenzie and Holland signal, which we think has come from Glanaputh. Next up, 3 road, the middle road. This is the hardest to access, as I said before. Access is through the goods shed. So here are the real long-term storage wagons. There's a lifetime's work in this shed in terms of restoration, and who knows which generation will come to restore some of these old wagons. But when they do come to them, they will have been stored in the dry and they won't have rotted away. It's much the same story with Fore Road, with many long-term prospects for restoration stored securely in here. There's also wagons that will form part of the demonstration goods train, and they're in the process of being rebuilt and having their standards of renovation improved, and that's happening at the moment. So there's some brand new wheel sets for this coal wagon being prepared. And the gunpowder van behind me, which was for many years stored next to the sea, being the sand store at Boston Lodge. This wagon is undergoing renovation at the moment. The doors have just been riveted, and there's some wheel sets being prepared for that as well. So we hope to see that back in the demonstration goods train soon as well. So finally, 5 Road. This was built deliberately with a slightly wider loading gauge so we could get slightly wider vans and vehicles in here. So again, at this end, there's some long-term storage. So this is an original old company quarryman's carriage that was for many years a line-side hut. Then we've got the parts of Welsh Pony not used in the rebuild. So we've got the frames, cylinders, obviously the boiler there on top, and some other components that are stored safely all together here at the moment. This is the JGF wagon, structure gauge wagon, with some modifications for use on rebuilding the railway and certainly on the deviation and on the new tunnel. Like many of the wagons in here, like this one, these were modified for use in rebuilding and maintaining the railway in the early preservation days. So looking at the fleet as a whole, we won't be returning all the Victorian slate wagons to their Victorian condition, because it's a good example of how these wagons were used throughout the whole history of the railway, not just in the slate transport days. JGF wagon. Another example of an old company slab wagon that used to have a mobile compressor on it, again used extensively up and down the railway. So that'll be staying as it is, and we'll try and make it look a bit more like it did, especially when it was within living memory working down as a compressor at Boston Lodge. Got some stored components there. This is the body of a gunpowder van that we acquired from our friends up at Lleckwith. This body's under renovation at the moment. There's some rot on the bottom of it, and that's been sorted out. We've got some new components to rivet on, and that'll be progressed in due course. This body actually came without a chassis. It had been used as a little hut in the quarry, so the team have built a brand new chassis for it to go on, so it can again form part of the goods train. So those two components can come together soon. We've got 164, the old breakdown wagon that used to be at Boston Lodge, full of equipment to use in the event of a breakdown. That needs some work on its headstocks and on its wheels. We've got the Simplex, Mary Ann. One of the widest vehicles, again stored in this siding, especially because of the larger loading gauge. Stored nice and safely in here for when we can save up some money to fill the tank with petrol. We've got the ultimate vehicle for many of us, the hearse wagon with its beautiful urns. This had a bit of a repaint a few years ago. And again, stored safely in here. This is a replica wooden dandy wagon that was built, I think, in the 1980s, based on an old plate layers trolley. It's not up to mainline standards for running, really, but it's good to have it here. And we were able to show it off when the UNESCO inspector came in 2020 to look at the railway with a view to it forming part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. We've got a replica of a Mark II quarryman's carriage. That was completed a few years ago. That often forms part of the goods train because we haven't got a big long quarryman's train yet. This is a tank wagon that was up in storage in the Minor Ferren quarry, and we've taken it on. It came down here and had a very quick rebuild and repaint, and beautiful it looks too. 99 van is one of the covered railway vans. It used to be the electrical gang's mobile store down at Boston Lodge, but that often meant it was stored outside, so that's been replaced by a modern built van in a similar sort of style, and this is back in the heritage goods train. We've got the Rosyth wagon, which was rebuilt in 2002 and has had a bit of maintenance since then. That's based on remains of a wagon that was found in the Croyce Valley. The railway didn't just transport slate, it transported slabs of stone and slabs of slate. So that's a long slab wagon. The two wooden bolster wagons are here. The rebuild of those was completed around 4 years ago to take them back to traditional appearance with the curved bolster supports there. We've got a 2-ton slate wagon, 681. This is a side tipper, so this is an early 20th century conversion of a heritage vehicle to be a side tipper. These were actually used again on the rebuild of the railway itself. And there's many hairy stories apparently about them tipping themselves over along with contents. The iron bogie wagon, so-called Clemenson wagon, 6-wheel wagon. The iron coal wagon looking resplendent, as I'm sure you all agree. This had attention and basically a brand new chassis, but obviously all fully authentically hot riveted together. That happened a few years ago. Replica open wagon, the so-called beer wagon, because we discovered a photo of it carrying barrels, and there's only one thing that the barrels could contain. So this was completed maybe 8 years ago, and that's a replica. Another covered van, the Parallella van, 154, and it even says goods van on it. And it's not a heritage wagon, it's Moyle Hebog, but we do occasionally allow visitors in the shed. The wagons are now stored safely and securely in the dry. The next challenge was to try and build up workshop facilities at Boston Lodge for the ongoing restoration of the wagons, and that's what we're going to go and have a look at now. And here we are at Boston Lodge at the workshop. We're actually round the back of the blacksmith shop because there's a load of noisy activity going on around the front, which is what this is all about. The blacksmith shop itself has been renovated over the last few years with funding from a number of sources, including the FR Society, thank you very much, and thanks to private donors and to CADU, who's given us some funding for this. So you can see behind me, one of the benefits of being out the back here is that we can see the roof that's been fully renovated with brand new slates from Blaenau Festiniog. You'll also be able to see the collection of chimneys reinstated. And this is one of the classic views of Boston Lodge, with a huge collection of chimneys out over the blacksmith shop, serving the various forges and ovens in the blacksmith shop. Work took place last year to make the building usable, so the end was closed off to make it into a complete building. Some work took place on electrics and various other things, like the all-important drainage was sorted out because there was a tendency for the building to flood before that. That just got it to a usable state, and that's what the noise you can hear behind me is all about. People are able to use it. Volunteers are there now working on heritage projects. So the slate wagons and the heritage wagons are being worked on. There's various other projects in there, and of course the Kerr Stewart has got a base in there. And they're the ones that you can hear behind me hitting parts of their diesel to start the renovation of the bodywork and the cab on their loco. On the heritage wagon front, a lot of effort has been going into maintaining the present train we've got. A number of years ago we ran a very long gravity train, and that was fantastic to see, but the wagons in that train need more and more maintenance. So that's what the active team are concentrating on at the moment. A lot of that is about the fundamentals, the really important things, really important components on the wagons. So first part of any train operation is how do we stop? So we've been concentrating on that, and the team have been doing some great work on replacement components for the brake gear, which will improve the braking performance of the train. So here we can see some brand new components, and they've been united with some reused parts. This is part of a 3-ton wagon brake assembly for the aficionados amongst you. And some of this brake gear has been fitted this weekend. So we're looking forward to testing that and comparing it to the braking performance that we saw before it was fitted. We've also got some parts of the ratchet handles, again, being reused. We always reuse as much as possible. We've invested in some brand new band brakes for 2-ton wagons. So they're the ones that sit on top of the wheel and are pulled down by the brake handle. To go with the brake gear work, there's been a lot of investment in brand new wheel sets as well. So these have been fitted progressively to the fleet. And you can see some of them here. We've had funding from F&WHR Railway Society, for which, of course, we're incredibly grateful. And this has allowed us to buy brand new wheel castings, brand new axles, and the work staff here have fitted them together and turned them up. So a lot of these are ready to fit to wagons, either in the gravity fleet or there's some wheel sets here for reproduction, replica wooden vehicles as well. So as the year goes on, we'll see we'll see a much better, safer gravity train. We'll also see some of those replica vehicles come into operation in the goods train once again. Going back to the band brakes, here we see them being shaped to the wheels, and they're being lined up with the linkage here. Obviously, they go on the other side of the wheel, but they're being matched up to the linkage here and being fitted to this wagon. This will be a wonderful thing and back in the train in the next few months. For the aficionados amongst you, once again, this is a 1000 series 2-ton wagon, obviously upended so we can work on it. When I say we, I mean the people who are getting their hands dirty today. But yeah, it's a 1000 series wagon. If any of you It's hardly thinkable that there are people who don't know what that is, but if you want the full breakdown of all the different types of slate wagons, then please come on down and help, and there are people here who can waste days of your life telling you all about the different types. Alongside the work on the iron wagons and the slate wagons, a new team has been formed to work with that group, but with a specific focus on the wooden heritage wagons.
Look good, look good.
But there's more work to come as part of the NLHF programme. We want this place to be the beating heart of the top yard, a place where people can come to work on heritage projects and learn more about volunteering and the traditional skills that we still employ here. But for now, it's fantastic to see it in use. It's fantastic to see a load of people enjoying being here, and it's a fantastic sight to see both the beautiful building and the people working in the building actually, for the large part, using the building for what it was originally intended for, maintaining our fleet.